Gita Sastri class. Thank you so much for joining on time. Let's begin this new chapter 14 of Bhagavad-gita by chanting the prayers. Om Agyan Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahiyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Panan Sahagana Lalitam Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurtushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarobhyasya Kripa Sindhu Yevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We welcome everyone once again to the class. We are going to start a very interesting chapter today, chapter number 14. It's very practical, relevant, informative, striking. The topic is the three modes of material nature. Gunas, Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, Tamaguna. So it's a short chapter, but it is very interesting. Let's also chant the Mangalacharan for Bhagavad-gita. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Fullaravindayatapatra Netre Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikaparnaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamrita Duhe Namaha. So a quick look back at what we discussed in the previous chapter. You can answer by putting the answer in the chat box. Since when conditioned jiva is associated with material nature? Since when? Conditioned jiva, you can put the answer in the chat box, please. Since when the conditioned jiva is associated with material nature? Keep yourself on mute. Okay, thank you so much. Time immemorial, beginningless time. Anadi Kal. Who is the real Purusha from the previous chapter? Who is the real Purusha? Okay, very good. The real Purusha is, yes, Super Soul, Paramatma, Krishna. Finally, Does this knowledge, which we discuss in chapter 3, help in advancing in bhakti? Yes, yes. Okay, very good. Yes. All right. Yes, it does. So now chapter 3 and 14 are connected in this way. In chapter 13, in verse number 22, anyone remembers that verse? Is that your memorization verse? 13.22. Do you have to memorize it for the exam? I don't remember. Yes or no? Anyway, that verse is
Yes,
Purushaha Prakriti Sthohi Bhunte Prakriti Jar Gunar Karanam Gunasangosya Sad Asad Yoni Janmasho. Karanam Gunasangasya. Because of association with guna, guna means modes, the person, the living entity, is again and again taking birth in different kinds of bodies. Krishna explained that in chapter 13. So now in this chapter, Krishna explains what these three modes are, how they work, how they bind us, and how we can go beyond them. We can go beyond them. That's being explained in this chapter. So in this chapter, 5 subject matters are described. This is explained by Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushana. These 5 things are: first, what are the gunas? How does the association with one of those gunas take place? What is the result of association with the guna? What are the characteristics of a person associated with a particular guna? And how does one become freed from the gunas? 5 questions are answered. So does someone know the answer to the first question? What are the gunas? What are they? Neha Mataji.
Sattva-guna, Raja-guna, and Tamo-guna.
Thank you. Those are the names, but what are they?
They are linking the super soul with the they are linking the soul with the material nature.
Okay. Yes, Usha Mataji, what are they?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance.
You have just translated Sattva and Rajas and Tamas in English. What are they?
There are 3 modes of material nature.
Very good. So yeah, I know there are three modes. What exactly are they? Usha, Sureka Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Sadha Pranam. Prabhuji, gunas are the nature of a jiva which he gets from the activities of previous births.
Okay, but what exactly are they in their constitution? What are they? What are the gunas? Annapurna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. They are part of Krishna's energy, and
Very good. Yes, thank you. So the
through the
3
desire,
modes. Okay, that much is sufficient. That much is sufficient. The gunas are Krishna's material energy. That's all. The gunas are Krishna's material energy. Constitutionally, that's what they are. Now, what you are telling is what they do, what is their name, all that. But the gunas are Krishna's material energy. Okay, so first topic here in this chapter is conditioning of the modes. How do the modes cause the conditioning? That's explained. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Param Bhuya Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yajñatva Munayah Sarve Param Siddhimito Gataha. Krishna is telling Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Param Bhuyaha. Bhuya means again. Param means supreme. Pravakshyami means telling. I am again telling you the supreme knowledge. Which knowledge? Jnana nam jnanam uttamam. Can someone translate this Sanskrit phrase? Jnana nam jnanam uttamam. It's a very simple phrase. What does it mean? Jnana nam jnanam uttamam. Kavita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, this means the best of the knowledge.
Okay, something more precise and specific. Srinivas Gopal Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you very much. Prabhuji, out of jnana, this is Uttama jnana.
Very good. Of all the knowledges, Jnananam, of all the knowledges, this is Jnanam Uttamam. This is the best, the supreme most knowledge. So, is this knowledge better than what is already explained in chapter 9 and 10? Because there Krishna said, Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam. Is this better?
No.
Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, no. Yes or no? No, yes. Anju Mataji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, yes, it is better because it is the way to reach that Uttam Gyan. So this is the pathway. And so it is better than that.
Okay. Anyone else? Hanit Mataji?
Prabhuji, it is best amongst the last 6 chapters. Because this pertains to, since Krishna is starting a new section on Jnana, so this is the best among this particular portion.
Yes. So this is not better than 9 and 10 chapter because that is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. This is Jnana Nam Jnanam Uttamam. It is not Bhakti Nam Jnana Uttamam. It is Jnana Nam Jnana Uttamam. In the section of Jnana, this is the best Jnana. But it can never be better than Bhakti. Right? So in the last unit, which is chapters 13 to 18, this is the best knowledge. Why? Why is it best? Because this chapter teaches us how to become free from the 3 modes of material nature. That's why it is the best knowledge in this section. Okay, so translation is the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, again, I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained that supreme perfection. We'll read the purport, 1 paragraph, 1 person. Please raise your hand if you want to read the purport. David Prabhu, yes, first paragraph.
Hare Krishna, Your Grace, please accept my humble obeisances. Should I first start from the 7th chapter, right?
Yes.
From the 7th chapter to the end of the 12th chapter, Sri Krishna in the detail revealed the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now the Lord himself is further enlightening Arjuna. If one understands this chapter through the process of philosophical speculation, he will come to an understanding of devotional service. In the 13th chapter, it was clearly explained that by the humbly developing knowledge, one may possibly be free from material entanglement. It has also been explained that it is due to association with the mode of nature that the living entity is entangled in this material world. Now, in this chapter, the Supreme Personality explains what those modes of nature are, how they act, how they bind, and how they give liberation. The knowledge explained in this chapter, proclaimed by Supreme Lord to the superior to the knowledge given so far in other chapters. By understanding this knowledge, various great sages attained perfect and transferred to the spiritual world. The Lord now explained the same. Please, can you go up, please? Explain the same knowledge in a better way. This knowledge is far, far superior to all other process of knowledge that's far explained. And knowing this many attain perfection. Thus it is expected that one who understands the 14th chapter will attain perfection. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Next verse. Idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharamyam agataha sargepi nopajayante pralayana vatanti cha. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So Krishna is talking about the benefit of getting this knowledge. One who gets this knowledge will not have to take birth again. He will get same nature, sadharmyam, as the Supreme Lord, agataha, mama sadharmyam agataha. He will get the same nature as Krishna. What is Krishna's nature? Anyone remembers those 8 qualities which Krishna has, which a living entity gets from Krishna by getting his nature? Those 8 qualities, we discussed that in chapter number 8. Now, of all the hands up, which one is for answer? Navanidhi Mataji, is that your hand for answer?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
Krishna's nature are sinless, deathless.
Okay, no,
From thirst.
you're traveling, Mataji, so your voice is not coming properly. You're traveling, it seems, right? Someone else knows the answer. Paramita Mataji, you know the answer.
Beauty, knowledge, wisdom. Beauty, knowledge, peaceful, renunciation.
No, not that. There are 8 qualities we discussed, which Krishna has. 8 qualities, which every living entity gets from Krishna. Anju Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, that is sinless, ageless, deathless, without any grief, without any hunger, without thirst, blissful, and immediate fulfillment of the desires.
Yes, very good. So these are the 8 qualities. Sadharamyam, so one gets that. Upashritya. Upashritya means one who worships the feet of one's guru, one's spiritual master. That person gets these benefits. I'll read the purport here, the second paragraph of the purport. Yes, so Surya Mataji, you can read that.
Yes, Prabhuji. Second paragraph.
Yeah.
Generally, in the material world, whatever knowledge we get is contaminated by the 3 modes of material nature. Knowledge which is not contaminated by the 3 modes of nature is called transcendental knowledge. As soon as one is situated in that transcendental knowledge, he is on the same platform as the Supreme Person. Those who have no knowledge of spiritual sky hold that after being freed from the material activities of material form, this spiritual identity becomes formless, without any variegatedness. However, just as there is material variegatedness in this world, in the spiritual world there is also variegatedness. Those in ignorance of this thing, that spiritual existence is opposed to material variety. But actually, in the spiritual sky, one attains a spiritual form. There are spiritual activities, and spiritual situation is called devotional life. That atmosphere is said to be uncontaminated, and there one is equal in quality with the Supreme Lord. To obtain such knowledge, one must develop all the spiritual qualities. One who thus develops the spiritual qualities is not affected either by the creation or by the destruction of material world. Hare.
Thank you. So having spoken that, now Krishna moves to the real topic. Father and mother. Krishna is the father, nature is the mother. Mama yonir mahad brahma tasmin garbham dadamiham sambhava sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. The previous chapter, it told us about Kshetra and Kshetragya. It told us about the field and the owner of the field. But the question was there that how did these two come together? So here Krishna says, I brought them together. I put the jivas into the material nature. It's me who has done that. Now they go all together. That is evident from the verses 7.4 and 5, where we learn Bhumirapo nalo vayu kammano buddhirevacha ahankariti yame bhinna prakriti ashtada. And what is the next verse? And you remember 7.5? It was your memorization verse. 7.5.
Karpanya dosha.
Very good. Apremeyamitasthanyam
Prakritim
Dime param jiva bhuta mahabahu.
Mahabahu yedam dharyate jagat.
Yes, very good. So those two verses talk about material energy, spiritual energy. Matter, jiva, put together. And in the chapter 13, also verse 27 said the same thing, that they are combined together. But who makes it possible? The Lord. The Lord puts them together. If the Lord would not have done it, it would not have been possible. Why? Because one is of the nature of water, the other is of the nature of oil. How can oil mix with water? It can never mix with water. But though one is spiritual and other is material, because Krishna is the agent bringing them together, they are able to stay together. And how does Krishna do that? Through his achintya shakti, inconceivable potency. He brings them together. He puts them together. Otherwise, they are totally opposite in quality or nature. So let's read the purport here. X3. The total material substance called Brahman. This is called, this Brahman, which is the material substance, technically it is called Jada Brahman. So this Jada Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate. That I here refers to Para Brahman, making possible the birth of all living beings. So these living beings are Jiva Brahman. So it is Para Brahman who puts the Jiva Brahman into the Jada Brahman, because everything is Brahman. But then it's not of the same nature. Those who are impersonalists, those who are Vedantists, they will say everything is Brahman, means everything is God. But we say no, there is Jada Brahman, Jiva Brahman, Para Brahman. They are of different quality, but base nature is same. So making possible the birth of all living beings, O son of Bharata. Let's read the purport here. Rupanshi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. This is an explanation of the world. Everything that takes place is due to the combination of Kshetra and Kshetra Jnana, the body and the spirit soul. The combination of material nature and the living entity is made possible by the Supreme God Himself. The Mahat Tattva is the total cause of the total cosmic manifestation and the total substance of the material cause, in which there are three modes of nature, is sometimes called Brahman. The Supreme Personality impregnates that total substance, and thus innumerable universe become possible. This total material substance, the Mahat Tattva, is described as Brahmana in the Vedic literature, Mundaka Upanishad, chapter number 1.1.19. Tasmad itad Brahmana nam rupam ananam cha jayate. The Supreme Person impregnates that Brahmana with the seeds of the living entities. The 24 elements beginning from earth, water, fire, air, and material air are all material energies. They constitute what is called Mahat Brahman, or the great Brahmana, the spiritual material nature. As explained in the 7th chapter, beyond this, there is another superior nature, the living entity. Into material nature, the superior nature is mixed by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thereafter all living entities are born of this material nature. The scorpion
Thank you,
lays it.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna,
Let's come
Prabhuji.
to Hare Krishna. Okay, next paragraph. Paramita.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The scorpion lays its eggs in piles of rice, and sometimes it is said that the scorpion is born out of rice. But the rice is not the cause of the scorpion. Actually, the eggs were laid by the mother. Similarly, material nature is not the cause of the birth of the living entities. The seed is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they only seem to come out as products of material nature. This every living entity, according to his past activities, has a different body, created by this material nature, so that the entity can enjoy or suffer according to his past deeds. The Lord is the cause of all the manifestations of living entities in this material world. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So this is how it happens. There is Krishna. And Krishna then puts his glance upon the Mahat Brahma. This Mahat Brahma is Pradhan, made up of 3 modes and manifested as Mahat. So when Krishna puts his glance upon Pradhan, then this Pradhan becomes Mahat Tattva. Just like a woman, before she is impregnated, she is in one state. After she is impregnated, she is the same woman, but then now she's called pregnant woman. Similarly, it's the same nature. Before impregnation is called Pradhan. After impregnation, it is called Mahat Tattva. So Krishna glances on that. And when Krishna glances on that, through this glance, Krishna puts what? Krishna puts the jivas into the Mahat Brahma, and this glance of Lord Krishna is called Lord Shiva. Everything about Krishna is a person. Krishna's voice is person. Krishna's glance is persons. Glance means to look, to cast aside, right? So to look. So this sight which Krishna has on the material nature, this glance which Krishna puts, this, because it is connected to Krishna, it is a person, and this glance is called Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is a personality behind this glance. He is Lord Shiva. And what does this glance contain? This glance contains all the jivas, small particles of consciousness. So when these small particles of consciousness enter the material nature, which is being compared here to a womb, which refers to Lord Mother Durga, then what comes out is different kinds of living entities, born with different bodies. Why, in general, Durga is referred to as Mother? Because she is the one who provides all the jivas, the material bodies, different kinds of material bodies. But who is the father? It is Krishna who provides the seed in the form of the living entity, the spiritual spark. And because Krishna never interacts with material nature by himself directly, there is a personality between Krishna and material nature, and that personality is called Lord Shiva. That's why Lord Shiva is very similar to Vishnu and at the same time not similar to Vishnu. So here we see all 3 come in the act of creation. Krishna or Vishnu, Shiva and Durga. They all come together. So if the Puranas, they say that Durga, she is the Adi Mata. Is it wrong? No, it is correct. If the Purana says that Shiva is the father, Pita, is it wrong? No, it is correct. And if the Purana says, Gita says, Krishna says, I am the father of all. I am the father of, that is also not wrong. I just explained what your question is in the comment you said. In a Granth called Bhagavad-gita Puran, it says Durga is the supreme. Because she is the mother. Adi Shakti, Adi Mata. Right? So that's why she is being considered the supreme. But then she only provides the material body. And that is the reason why those souls who are conditioned in nature and do not have spiritual goals in life, they are more inclined to worship Mother Durga. Because naturally, a child has more inclination towards the mother than the father. They identify themselves as the body. Who gave the body? Durga gave the body. So that's why I'll worship Mother Durga. Amba or Mata Rani or Jagadamba, whatever you may call. She is the universal mother. But then those who are inclined towards spiritual life and they understand this material body is not my real identity, that person will shift the focus of worship from Durga or Shiva to Krishna. Because that person begins to know, as spirit soul, who has given me birth, who is my source? It is Krishna who is my source. Right? Krishna is the origin of me as the spirit soul. So that's why I should worship Krishna. So here we understand in this way. All right, let's move on. Isn't Lord Shiva for annihilation? Yes, of course, he is there for annihilation also. But here we are understanding Lord Shiva's identity in relation to Krishna. Lord Shiva becomes the medium of, interaction between material nature and Lord Krishna. So he is there in creation, but he's not really exactly in charge of it. He is given the in charge of dissolution or destruction. So in this way, the material nature provides all different kinds of bodies, 84 lakh types, 8.4 million types, and they're all crafted by Mother Durga. Okay, but then who becomes the agent in the hands of Durga to craft the bodies the way they look? It's Brahmaji, who is the engineer. But he's inspired by the material energy of Krishna to function in that manner. Since Durga Devi provides the conditioned living entities material bodies, it is natural for them to see her as the mother. As long as they want to remain conditioned. But once they want to become liberated, then they will prefer to see Krishna as the father and the spiritual mother, Radharani, as the mother. Or Lakshmi as the mother, or Sita as the mother, right? The spiritual energy. Next, let's do the next verse, then we'll go to this discussion. Text 4. Sarvayonishu kaunteya murtayaha sambhavanti yaha tasam brahma mahadyonir aham bija pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. So Krishna is again making the same point. I am the father, nature is the mother, and I give the seed. And that's how every living entity becomes possible, right? So now we'll do a discussion on this knowledge we received in verse 3 and 4. We'll put you into separate groups. Identify some of the social, moral, and environmental issues and discuss the relevance of the knowledge given in verses 14.3 to 4 in those contexts. So you can identify one of the issues, two of the issues, up to you, but it has to be a social, moral, environmental issue. Explain how this knowledge can bring a change in people's outlook. Some examples of issues are racism, food scarcity, water pollution, motherland, etc. So you can think about the issues, in which category you would put them, and then how this knowledge given in 14.3.4 can help to change people's outlook towards those issues, right? And I give you 7 minutes to do this discussion. We'll put you into 6 groups. Maybe I'll give you just 6 minutes. Put you in 6 groups and you can discuss. Appoint a group leader. Best is if you just take one issue or 2 issues at max and then discuss them. Best would be just one, because also have to give solution to it. So, and then you can present that after the discussion. I hope the question is clear. Yes? Okay, so we start.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram
Welcome, everyone. Group leaders, please raise your hand. We had 6 groups. I think 6 groups, yes. So we must have 6 hands up. Nagraj Prabhu, Rohit Prabhu, Sonali Mataji, Kevin, Neha, and one more. Who's the 6th group leader? Ashok Prabhu. All right. Let's go. Nagaraj Prabhu. Tell us the issue first and then the relevance.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. We had a fantastic discussion. The issue is the ongoing racism and casteism, which is leading to the wars and conflicts between people and countries currently. If we all have the knowledge and belief and understanding that we all come from the Parabrahma, the Lord Krishna, then we all human beings and all animals, we all have got one father. That means we are all brothers, and we can actually treat this whole earth as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So we are all one big family. And with that understanding, we can actually stop fighting with each other and stop having wars and problems and reduce the discrimination. And in fact, because of the modes of nature, if we continue with all these conflicts, we will accumulate more karma, and actually we will just keep going back into the same cycle and accumulate even more karmas. So I think having this knowledge and having the understanding that we are all from the same Lord Krishna as our father, and our mother is the material energy from Lord Krishna, then these problems will not continue. So effectively, morally, we'll be better off, environmentally, we'll be better off, and socially, we'll be better off.
Good, thank you. Nice topic and very good solution. Yes, thank you so much. Next group, Rohit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So there are like animal killing, like humans kill the living entities which are like inferior to them. So when we see that we all other living entities have come from the same Supreme Personality of God, so like we won't we should not be, and we won't be killing them. This was one of the issue, and other issue we discussed was the resources thing. What we see is like some group of people have more resources than some other group of people. For example, countries like they have more quantity of food, and some other countries are like they are in the state of malnutrition. So those resources, having this knowledge, like they are also brothers and sisters. So the resources should be shared among the all different people. And other issue is like of the religions. We see that many religions also has animosity amongst each other. So we can see that after all, we are all coming from the same Supreme Personality of God, and they are also our brothers and sisters. So we should not be having and sharing like peacefully and having.
Right. Thank you. If there would have been not have been any issue about the oil, there would not have been any issue with, America attacking, what was that country, Iraq?
Ukraine and Russia.
Iraq, and now Ukraine and Russia is going on. So just because of that one resource called oil. Yes, Sonali Nandan Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. We discussed about the struggle for survival. When we are not aware about the higher understanding, we normally go for competition. Nowadays, competition is enormous in each and every field. That is the struggle for survival. And if we apply this knowledge, then we understand that we are the part and parcel of Supreme. Our Father is the source of everything. So we will come into a, the whole world can come into a Krishna conscious lifestyle, and all this social economical problems will get automatically resolved. We don't need to worry about the social and economic development. We just need to discipline ourselves and get the higher knowledge. Then we can be Vasudevam Kutumbakam.
Okay, so what was the social issue? The social issue was competition?
Yes.
All right.
Struggle for survival.
Struggle for existence, or struggle for survival. And then the solution is understanding Krishna is father, material nature is mother. We should share, we should cooperate, again, share the resources. And also have faith that because Krishna is my father, Krishna will also provide for me.
Yes.
Having that faith, unnecessarily not having that anxiety whether I'll be provided or not. Srila Prabhupada used to emphasize this a lot. He said that why people need to work so hard just because they don't have this faith that God will provide. If they have this faith that God will provide, they won't work so hard. And then they can save some time to develop higher consciousness rather than just acquiring material things. They will save time and they will work in this direction. Kevin Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. We follow the same theme, of an undivided society. So our topic was on motherland, different divisions from countries with different cultures, based on different differences in the way people look and do things. If everyone understands that we're all from the same quality and same source, then there's no need for any divisions. It's been the theme from everyone. I think Rohit Prabhu mentioned about some resources and people want to take away resources from each another. So one of the other topics that we talked about was also food shortage and the poverty and economic issues created by these divisions of where certain people believe that these are mine and this is not yours. And if everyone believes that we're all together, then there shouldn't be a need for me to keep more than what I need. And food can be shared because Krishna is providing food for everyone. And it's just our greed that people are in poverty and in economic situations where the situation where people are starving. And those are the topics that we had discussed.
All right, thank you. So Srila Prabhupada once quoted this incident. He said, because he had personally seen with his eyes the breaking apart of India into Pakistan and then later on Bangladesh. So he said, before both of these Muslims and Hindus were shouting, this is my land. The other person said, no, 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 this is my land. Whose land it is? It is mine. And after some moments, they shot each other, they died, their dead body was on the ground. And then Prabhupada said, whose land it is now? You are gone. Whose land it is now? So he said, it is neither Muslim's land, nor it is Hindu's land. It is Krishna's land. It is God's land. It was his before, it is now his, and later on also it will be his. And people will come and go and then say it's my land, motherland. And if they see Durga as the mother, then the whole earth is everyone's land, isn't it? The whole earth is everyone's land. When India got partitioned into Pakistan, there was a big problem. You know why? Because of this river which flows into Pakistan, there's this, that river name is Sindhu, Indus, or known as Sindhu, right? So because of that, all the agricultural fields were on the side of Pakistan because the river flew in that area. So they had very nice, bountiful of crops and everything. And all the industries, they remain on the side of India. So India suffered from lack of food and Pakistan started suffering from lack of industry because the partition was done. And if the partition would not have been done, they were living together as brothers anyway, So in that way, people, they suffer. One may have one resource, the other will have some other resource. And there'll be fight. There'll be war to get the other resource. Yes, fifth group, Neha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, we took up the water pollution environmental issue and we discussed water is Krishna's material energy, the first point. And so we should not exploit it and we should use these resources sparingly because it has already resulted in so many water wars. One very active water war is going on between the Karnataka and Tamil Nadu states, and they're fighting over the water of the river Kaveri.
Yes, state has these wars. who will construct the dam? One state constructs a dam, the other state doesn't get water for farming, because one state wants to get hydroelectric power from it. So then these problems are there. Or, like people in Delhi and other places will drop all the waste in Yamuna. And then when that Yamuna comes to Vrindavan, then it is full of waste. It's so dirty, stinking, So it affects. But when they understand Krishna is the owner, then one will use the resources properly. All right. What about the sixth group? Who was there in the sixth?
Myself.
Okay.
Tokaneja Prabhuji.
Yeah, you have to raise your hand, no problem. How will we know?
In fact, Prabhuji, our group discussed and we got connected to two issues which are very burning issues these days, that is racism and motherland. When the God gave birth to us, it was because of all our karmic reactions, that some was born black, short, some was born white, some was born brown. And some was born in India, some was born in USA, having different resources, different kind of characteristics. Because of the ignorance of these things, we are always harping upon our this whiteness and brownness, and there is widespread racial discrimination. This is one of the distortions of creation of the material world by Krishna. And second is, we call our motherland India, fighting with Pakistan just for a few villages. People are dying, there is war, and there are instances of war also. It is only for the land. So this is because though Krishna created in the right way this material manifestation, we have understood it wrongly because people have not gone through Gita or verses 3 or 4, that the mother of all of us is same, father of us, all of us is same, but we are the children of the same father, same material creation, but fighting with each other and not remembering the God. We have forgotten our constitutional position. So if somebody reads Gita verses 3 and 4, probably they will come to the point that seed-giving father is Krishna, and Krishna is the father of all. This material creation which is created by Durga, it belongs to all of us collectively. So when we think of this, then we will forget our individual discrepancies. We will not fight with each other. Probably this world will become a source of peaceful coexistence if we read these verses.
Thank you. So we can see that, like, you go to Jagannath Puri, there's so many Muslims there who worship Jagannath. There's so many Hindus who worship Jagannath. And they don't fight because they know that we are all son or child of the same Jagannath. They're living together happily. And that's how the society was before. The Hindus and the Muslims, they lived very closely as brothers. But then after Britishers, they divided and they, made them apart. Then these things came up, so much of discrimination. All right, so let's go to the next topic now. Okay, before we go to the next topic, we'll take a break for a few minutes. Then we'll go to the next topic.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Welcome back, dear devotees. Next section, verses 5 to 10. How the modes bind us. We'll quickly read the Sanskrit first, and then we'll go to the individual verses. Sattvam rajastama iti guna prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam sukha sangena badhanati jnana sangena chanagha. Rajo ragatmakam vidhi trishna sanga samudbhavam tannibadnati kaunteya karma sangena dehinam. Tamastvajnanajam vidhi mohanang sarvadehinam pramadalasya nidrabhis tannibadnati bharata. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati rajah karmani bharata jnanam avritya tu tamaha pramade sanjayat yuta. So this is how the modes bind us. Sattvam Rajastama iti guna prakriti sambhavaha. This is the chart of what is being told in these verses. The 5th verse says about Jiva's bondage. The 6th verse says how Sattvaguna binds. 7th verse how Rajaguna binds. 8th verse how Tamaguna binds. And 9th verse is the summary. So how does Sattva bind? First, the 3 modes bind. Sattvam Rajas Tama iti nibadhanati. Nibadhananti means to bind. The Lord places the jivas into the material nature. But what keeps the jivas into the material nature? Why they don't go out of it? They don't go out of it because of the 3 modes. The 3 modes hold them back. The 3 modes keep them back. So the 3 modes don't allow them to go out of that. And how do the 3 modes bind the jivas? All these 3, they give an illusory experience of happiness. Sattva-guna also, Rajaguna also, and Tamaguna also. An illusion of happiness is created by these 3 modes. And that illusion keeps the jiva bound in material existence. And these 3 modes then mix and mix and mix and mix and mix and mix and provide varieties of opportunities to experience illusory happiness. That's how it happens. So the jiva is pure. We know that. The living entity is pure. Pure. And why it is called pure? Because it has its nature of servitude to God. I am Krishna's servant. That nature it has. So it's called pure soul. As soon as the jiva gives up this nature and becomes independent or develops an independent desire, what happens? Immediately a covering covers on top of the jiva. And this covering is the covering of false ego. This false ego brings a false identity. Earlier there was a real identity. I am Krishna's servant. Now this false ego brings a false identity, which means I am something other than a servant of Krishna. When this false identity comes. Why this comes? Because of the independent desire to be away from Krishna. Now, based on this false ego, then comes 2 more layers. One is the subtle body, and the other is the gross body. Based on the kind of false ego, that kind of mind, intelligence develops, and that kind of gross body develops. Right? In this way, the soul, which is actually full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity, becomes attracted to one particular material situation and then becomes conditioned by it. You know what is meant by the word condition? Like we say air conditioning. It means what? It conditions the air. Naturally, the air is of some particular type, but then you condition it. You change it. Similarly, it is conditioned. And then once you condition the air, you become used to that conditioning. So people who are used to air conditioning, then they cannot live in normal air. Then they are always, everywhere they go, they need an air conditioner. Everywhere they go, right? They need an air conditioner. Then they become used to that conditioning. Similarly, the pure jiva becomes used to the material conditioning and starts thinking, I am this body only. Right? This is how the jiva is entrapped. Verse 5. Material nature consists of 3 modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. Becomes conditioned. The next verse. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam. Please mute yourself. Sukha sangena badanati jnana sangena chanagha. So verse 6 tells us how the mode of goodness binds. Goodness is the purest. Prakashakam anamayam. Goodness produces two things, knowledge and happiness. Knowledge, happiness. Prakashakam anamayam. It is illuminating in nature and it gives you happiness. And it also binds. What are the two bondages that are created by goodness? Sukha sangena, jnana sangena. It binds you to happiness, it binds you to knowledge. Sukha sangena, jnana sangena. It is born of knowledge, it binds you to knowledge. It is born of happiness, it binds you to happiness. That's what happens with mode of goodness. We'll read the translation. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. These people, they don't suffer much in life. And there are such kind of people in this world. If you ask them, how is life? They will always say, I'm happy. And they are actually quite, happy in life. Why they are happy? Because they're better than others. And this gives them happiness. Because others, they have to struggle so much to just meet the ends. And this person is very smart. Immediately does something in short period of time and gets much more than what others get. So this makes that person little happy. Happy not because he is experiencing happiness, happy because he's not suffering like others are suffering. Like I can give an example of a smart student. A smart student sees, oh, everyone is studying so hard, making notes, memorizing, having the exam fear. But this person just reads the book for once or twice and then has memorized all the answers, knows all the tricks, and is sitting there very, very composed. Okay, you all people work very hard to score marks and still I'll be the topper. So that kind of attitude develops in, I'm better than others. And this becomes a cause of bondage. Why? Because this will make you proud. And that pride becomes the cause of bondage. Right? So this is how they become bound. We'll take your questions later, please. Someone read this slide. Okay. Ratnangi Lakshmi Priya Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Wiser than others. The living entities conditioned by material nature are of various types. One is happy, another is very active, and another is helpless. All these types of psychological manifestation are cause of the entities, conditions, status in nature. How they are differently conditioned is explained in this section of Bhagavad-gita. The mode of goodness is first considered. The effect of developing the mode of goodness is in the material world is that one becomes wiser than those otherwise conditioned. 14.6.
And continue to read from the verse. I mean, it's okay. Here, from here.
Okay. A man in the mode of goodness is not so much affected by material miseries, and he has a sense of advancement in material knowledge. The representative type is the Brahmana, who is supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness. This sense of happiness is due to understanding that in the mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reactions. Actually, in the Vedic literature, it is said that the mode of goodness means greater knowledge and a greater sense of happiness. The difficulty here is that when a living entity is situated in the mode of goodness, he becomes conditioned to feel that he is advanced in knowledge and is better than others. In this way, he becomes conditioned. The best example are the scientist and the philosopher. Each is very proud of his knowledge, and because they generally improve their living conditions, they feel a sort of material happiness. This sense of advanced happiness in conditioned life makes them bound by the mode of goodness of material nature. As such, they are attracted toward working in the mode of goodness, and as long as they have an attraction for working in that way, they have to take some type of body in the modes of nature. Thus, there is no likelihood of liberation or of being transferred to the spiritual world. Repeatedly, one may become a philosopher, a scientist, or a poet, and repeatedly being entangled in the same disadvantages of birth and death. But due to the illusion of the material energy, one thinks that that sort of life is pleasant. Hare Krishna.
Yes, yes. So here, there are many people like this who are very pious in nature, good looking, well educated, has a very nice family background, no chronic diseases, no cases in the court, business is running fine, people are getting happily married, they have kids. So they have a very, nice, smooth going life. No major problems. And what happens is that they get used to that kind of life. And they desire that kind of life only for years and years to come. And this becomes a reason for them to take birth again. Right? So that's how the mode of goodness binds. So mode of goodness is the most pure, yet it's also full of danger. What causes the bondage in mode of goodness? Happiness, knowledge, attachment to happiness, attachment to knowledge. What causes the bondage? Yes, you can put the answer in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. Anit Mataji.
Attachment to happiness.
And?
Attachment to knowledge.
So not knowledge and happiness cause the bondage. It is attachment to happiness and knowledge that cause the bondage. Why? Because attachment leads to pride. As soon as pride will come, Rajoguna will enter. And that Rajoguna will pull us down from Sattvaguna. So that attachment causes. So attachment to knowledge causes its opposite, that is ignorance. Attachment to happiness causes its opposite, that is suffering. And then that becomes the result of bondage, or the reason for bondage. So here, this particular section is very important for devotees to meditate upon and introspect in their personal life. Why? Because as devotees, we are compared to others better in many ways. And this can lead to a sense of pride. That look at these people, they are so sinful, so ignorant, so fallen, so degraded, uncivilized, uncultured. And I am a devotee now, so I'm better than them. I know more. I'm more happy, more satisfied. And this will then give birth to pride. So this is something which is well researched and proven, that any spiritual organization, when people join new to them, they become a bit more arrogant than compared to normal people, ordinary people. Why they become arrogant? Because they start thinking, now I am from a different world. I'm not like them anymore. I'm someone different now. So this makes them arrogant and proud. So what precautions a progressive devotee must take after learning about the bondage caused by the mode of goodness? What precautions should a devotee take? Because devotees are in mode of goodness. generally in comparison to others? What precaution should a devotee take? Yes, Anju Mataji.
The devotee shouldn't get attached to the knowledge or the position, whatever he is getting, and he should think that everything is because of the mercy of Lord Krishna and he's not capable enough.
Yes, someone should always have humility on. Never switch off the humility button. Keep it on always. So Prabhupada says the difficulty here is that when a living entity is situated in the mode of goodness, it becomes conditioned to feel that is advanced in knowledge and is better than others. This idea of me being better than others, that becomes the problem. That's why I think His Holiness Radharani Swami Maharaj once said this: do not consider yourself better than others, consider yourself just more fortunate. Considering better breeds pride. Considering fortunate breeds humility. And one should not compare, yes. So one should consider fortunate. And I have been made fortunate by devotees, by Krishna, by the parampara. I've been made fortunate. Not that I am better. That's why I'm like this. So then that goodness will not become a cause of fall or bondage. Okay, let's go to the next one. Rajoguna. How does Rajoguna bind? Rajo ragatmakam vidhi trishna sanga samudbhavam tan nibadnati kaunteya karma sangena dehinam. Rajoguna binds through karma sangena, through fruitive work. The bondage caused by Rajoguna is through fruitive work. And it is born of Trishna Sangha Samudbhavam. It is born of lots of material desires. Lots of material desires will give birth to Rajoguna. Passion. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings of son of Kunti, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive activities. Okay, let's read the purport. Sonali Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The mode of passion is characterized by the attraction between man and woman. Woman has attraction for man and man has attraction for woman. This is called the mode of passion. And when the mode of passion is increased, one develops the hankering for material enjoyment. He wants to enjoy sense gratification. For sense gratification, a man in the mode of passion wants some honor in society or in the nation, and he wants to have a happy life, happy family, with nice children, wife, and house. These are the products of the mode of passion. As long as one is hankering after these things, he has to work very hard. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that he becomes associated with the fruits of his activities, and thus becomes bound by such activities. In order to please his wife, children, and society, and to keep up his prestige, one has to work. Therefore, the whole material world is more or less in the mode of passion. Modern civilization is considered to be advanced in the standard of the mode of passion. Formerly, the advanced condition was considered to be in the mode of goodness. If there is no liberation for those in the mode of goodness, what to speak of those who are entangled in the mode of passion? Hare Krishna.
Modern definition of advancement is advancement in the mode of passion. Right? In the Vedic times, the definition of advancement was advancement in the mode of goodness. Now, the more passionate you are, the more advanced you are. The more peaceful you are, the more lazy you are. Text 8. How does ignorance bind? Tamastu jnana jam vidhi. It's born of ignorance. Mohanam sarvadehinam pramad alasya nidrabhis tani badnati bharata. So ignorance is born of ignorance, means lack of knowledge of the truth, and it produces three things: pramad, craziness; alasya, laziness; nidra, sleep. So what are they? Pramad is opposite of sattva guna, craziness or madness, which means careless tendency to perform actions which should not be done. Which should not be done. Okay. So there's a mistake here. Careless tendency to perform actions which should not be done. That's called pramad. That's ignorance. Then alasya. It's opposite of mode of passion. Lack of enthusiasm or laziness. That's called alasya. And finally, nidra. It's opposite to both goodness and passion. Sleep. Sleep means faintness of consciousness. Consciousness is gone. That's called sleep. Consciousness is withdrawn. It goes inward, away from the external life. So this is what mode of passion does. It makes one dull. Sorry, mode of ignorance does. It makes one dull. This is what mode of ignorance produces. We'll read the purport here, 14.8. Yes, Anju Mataji.
In this verse, the specific application of the word tu is very significant. This means that the mode of ignorance is a very peculiar qualification of the embodied soul. The mode of ignorance is just the opposite of mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, by development of knowledge, one can understand what is what, but the mode of ignorance is just the opposite. Everyone under the spell of the mode of ignorance becomes mad, and a madman cannot understand what is what. Instead of making advancement, one becomes degraded. The definition of the mode of ignorance is stated in the Vedic literature. Vastu yathatpaya jnana varakam vipraya jnana janakam tamah. Under the spell of ignorance, one cannot understand a thing as it is. For example, everyone can see that his grandfather has died and therefore he will also die. Man is mortal. The children that he conceives will also die. So birth is sure. Still, people are madly accumulating money and working very hard all day and night, not caring for eternal spirit. Should I read further? This is madness. In their madness, they are very reluctant to make advancement in spiritual understanding. Such people are very lazy. When they are invited to associate for spiritual understanding, they are not much interested. They are not even active like the man who is controlled by the mode of passion. Thus, another symptom of one embedded in the mode of ignorance is that he sleeps more than is required. 6 hours of sleep is sufficient, but a man in the mode of ignorance sleeps at least 10 or 12 hours a day. Such a man appears to be always dejected and is addicted to intoxicants and sleeping. These are the symptoms of a person conditioned by the mode of ignorance. Thank you.
So ignorance brings heaviness on the heart. Passion brings agitation to the heart. And goodness, it makes the heart light. So when someone is very sad, morose, dejected, lamenting, that's more of ignorance, confused, frustrated, angry. More of passion, when one is super ambitious, wants to achieve a lot, do a lot, is interested in name, fame, appreciation, glorification, recognition, distinction. That's more of passion. And goodness means the person is calm, sober, satisfied, happy, content, principled. That's more of goodness. So these three, but they all three bind. That's the problem. It doesn't mean that, okay, goodness is best, so let's go to goodness and stay there forever. No, that goodness also binds. Next verse talks about that. So we discuss this. So the problem with material existence is that anything you do, a pious act or a sinful act, everything can become a reason for bondage. Everything can become a reason for bondage. Doesn't matter whether you're a good person or a bad person. So here we see something more. Goodness, because it is pure, we can work purely when we are in goodness. So goodness makes you spiritually very active, but materially that person becomes inactive. Passion, at least when we are passionate, we can produce some fruits, and those fruits can be offered to Krishna, you know. So then that person is spiritually not so active, but materially very active. But someone is in ignorance, that person is materially also inactive, spiritually also inactive. Sleeping inside, sleeping outside. The person in goodness is sleeping outside, but inside that person is very awake, you know. So ignorance produces nothing, just deeper ignorance, that's all. So ignorance cannot be used in Krishna's service in any way. And goodness is the best. Goodness is the best. Next. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati rajah karmani bharata jnanam avritya tu tamaha pramade sanjayatyuta. In this way, the summary is that they all bind. They all bind. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness. Madness means inattention. Inattentiveness is caused by tamoguna. Inattention. Like for example, the door is open. The door is closed. You open it to enter the room or exit the room, but you don't close behind yourself. That is called inattention. So that inattention is caused by mode of ignorance. Inattentiveness to anything. That's mode of ignorance. Let's read the purport here. Tulasi Toshika Mataji.
A person in a mode of goodness is satisfied by his work or intellectual pursuit, just as a philosopher, scientist, or educator may be engaged in a particular field of knowledge and may be satisfied in that way. A man in the mode of passion may be engaged in fruitive activity. He owns as much as he can and spends for good causes. Sometimes he tries to open hospitals, give to charity institutions, etc. These are signs of one in the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance covers knowledge. In the mode of ignorance, whatever one does is good neither for him nor for anyone.
Text 10. This begins the new section actually. Before we go there, so what happens when we are in these three modes? What happens to our spiritual life? When one is in mode of goodness, the problem is that one is very satisfied. And this satisfaction becomes a cause of not following the dictates of the super soul. When one is in passion, one has so many desires, and these desires are so loud that we don't hear the voice of the super soul. The desires speak very loudly. So super soul, even if the super soul is shouting, the desires, they shout more loud, and people cannot hear that. And tamaguna, the person is so inert or inattentive that the person cannot even hear the voice of the super soul. So in this way, all three become an obstacle to growth in spiritual life. All three of them, right? They become an obstacle, and person in any of these three modes cannot rise above. So next is characteristics, action, and death in these three modes. After describing the effects of the mode, Krishna will now tell that these modes are not constantly influencing us, they are changing. Sometimes one becomes more powerful, sometimes the other one becomes more powerful, sometimes the third one becomes more powerful. And it all depends on our food, our karma, our choice of work, our association, which mode will become more prominent on us. Right? So the next verse is Rajas tamascha bhuya sattvam bhavati bharata rajah sattvam tamaschaiva tamah sattva rajas tatha. There is a competition between these modes. Sometimes goodness wants to become more powerful than passion and ignorance. Sometimes passion wants to become more powerful than goodness and ignorance. Sometimes ignorance wants to become more powerful than goodness and passion. And in this, who suffers in that competition? The conditioned soul. And how one of them become more powerful than the other? Because of our past karma, two modes, they become weaker. As soon as they become weaker, the third one becomes more powerful. And that third one starts ruling over us, starts dominating us. That's how that third one becomes more powerful. So read the purport here. Usha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. When the mode of passion is prominent, the modes of goodness and ignorance are defeated. When the mode of goodness is prominent, passion and ignorance are defeated. And when the mode of ignorance is prominent, passion and goodness are defeated. This competition is always going on. Therefore, one who actually intent on advancing in Krishna consciousness, excuse me, has to transcend these three modes. The prominence of some certain mode of nature is manifested in one's dealing, in his activities, in eating, etc. Excuse me. All this will be explained in later chapters. But if one wants, he can develop by practice the mode of goodness and thus defeat the mode of ignorance and passion. One can similarly develop the mode of passion and defeat the mode of goodness and ignorance. Or one can develop the mode of, Prabhuji, can you kindly scroll up? Or one can develop the mode of ignorance and defeat goodness and passion. Although there are these three modes of material nature, if one is determined, he can be blessed by the mode of goodness, and by the transcending the mode of goodness, he can be situated in pure goodness, which is called the Vasudeva state, a state in which one can understand the science of God. By the manifestation of particular activities, it can be understood in what mode of nature one is situated.
Yes. And how do we transfer ourselves from the lower modes to the higher modes? Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam reduces the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance and places one in goodness. Prabhupada mentions this. Hear about Krishna. If one hears about Krishna or God, then gradually he becomes freed from the clutches of darkness and passion. And actually he then comes to the platform of goodness. And when he's perfectly in goodness, then this passion and ignorance and their byproducts cannot touch him. Tada rajastamo bhava kamalobha dayaschaye. If we hear the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-gita regularly, then we become free from the effects of the modes of ignorance and passion, gradually, though it takes time, but it is sure. The more you hear about Krishna, Krishna makes his instruction or about him, the more we become purified. And what is the test of one who has become purified? One is free from the modes of passion and ignorance. That means one is no more attacked by greediness. He is happy then. So the effects of the mode, the dominant mode, are explained now in the next verses. Verse 11, 12, 13, they talk about the effects of goodness, passion, and ignorance. We'll just read the Sanskrit and then look at them individually. Text 11. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyan vivridham sattvam ityuta lobha pravrittirarambha karma nama shamaspriha rajasyetani jayante vivriddhe bharatarshava aprakasho pravrittischa pramado moha evacha tamasyetani jayante vivriddhe kuru nandana. So the mode of goodness, what effect it produces is, the manifestation of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of body are illuminated by knowledge. Illuminated by knowledge, which means one experiences happiness and satisfaction in all the sense perceptions. Purport. We'll read the purport here. Someone please read. Amrita Vilasani.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandana Prana. There are 9 gates in the body: 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, the mouth, the genitals, and the anus. When every gate is illuminated by the symptoms of goodness, it should be understood that one has developed the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, one can see things in the right position, one can hear things in the right position, and one can taste things in the right position. One becomes cleansed inside and outside. In every gate there is development of the symptoms of happiness, and that is the position of goodness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Mode of passion. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop. Someone read this, please.
Shall I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mother.
Purport. One in the mode of passion is never satisfied with the position he has already acquired. He hankers to increase his position. If he wants to construct a residential house, he tries his best to have a palatial house, as if he would be able to reside in that house eternally. And he develops a great hankering for sense gratification. There is no end to sense gratification. He always wants to remain with his family and in his house and to continue the process of sense gratification. There is no cessation of this. All these symptoms should be understood as characteristic of the mode of passion. Hare Krishna.
So that person is never satisfied with the position already acquired. Means always there is an hankering to increase more and more and more and more and more. And then next, mode of ignorance. When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of Kuru, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested. Vidyabhushana Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. But when there is no illumination, knowledge is absent. One in the mode of ignorance does not work by a regulative principle. He wants to act whimsically for no purpose. Even though he has the capacity to work, he makes no endeavor. This is called illusion. Although consciousness is going on, life is inactive. These are the symptoms of one in the mode of ignorance.
Thank you. So this table gives you a brief summary of these 3 verses. Goodness, the symptoms are knowledge and happiness in all gates of the body. Which means what? The body is not giving you any kind of pain. The senses are seeing everything or perceiving everything properly. What you see is exactly what it is. What you hear is exactly what it is, right? So there is no, you can say, there is no contamination in sense perception. Sense perception is very clear because of mode of goodness. Now, do you understand why a teacher might be shouting at the top of his voice and only some students understand? Because those students were at that time in mode of goodness and others were in mode of passion and ignorance. So even if they're sitting in the class, the modes is not allowing them to acquire the knowledge as it is being given by the teacher. Why? Because the senses are not receiving properly. There's no problem in the sender's part. The transmission is proper, but receiver is not proper, not receiving properly. So because of mode of ignorance and passion, because of that. So for anyone who wants to study, learn, be very alert in one's spiritual life, mode of goodness is very conducive because your reception is correct then. Otherwise, even if one is receiving so much, the receiver is not proper, then you get the wrong information, you get the wrong understanding, you get the wrong, experience. That doesn't help, right? So mode of goodness helps in this way. Then passion, it increases attachment to possessions, I and mine. It becomes very prominent in life. Efforts to increase one's possessions, Engagement in strenuous undertakings. Strenuous undertakings means working very, very, very hard. Inability to withdraw the senses from sense objects, longing for objects of enjoyment. Means when a desire enters in the heart of someone who is passionate in nature, it becomes very difficult for that person to withdraw the mind from that desire. The mind gets hooked into those desires. And that's what passion does. For someone who's in mode of goodness prominently, the desire will come, but because goodness brings renunciation, they can wash off. Chalo, get out, and the desire goes away. But rag, rajaguna, it hooks into the desire very deeply. No, I want it. I need it. I cannot live without it. That's what happens. So that's what rajaguna does. And ignorance, absence of discernment, there's no discrimination of good and bad. That's why, ignorant people, they can eat stale food and still say, it's so tasty, it is so nice. In fact, it is more tasty than the fresh food also. Why? Because they are in tamaguna, so there is no discrimination. You give them bad stuff, they will say, this is very good. You give them good stuff, they'll say, no, this is very bad. They don't have proper discrimination. What is right, they will say wrong. What is wrong, they will say this is right. That's mode of ignorance. Then aversion to prescribed duties. They don't do what they're supposed to do. And that's what ignorance makes them think that, I should not be doing this. I should be doing that, the other thing, the wrong thing. Then third, their lack of awareness, which means their sense perception is very weak. They are, you can say, they're ignorant about the environment, ignorant about what is going around them, very ignorant, and they're absorbed in the false. They like to dream, they like to watch movies, they like to play video games. They're completely engrossed in the virtual reality, in the falsehood. Read novels, which means again something imaginative, created, not reality. So that's mode of ignorance. But the only way to come out of these modes is, as earlier it was explained, by regularly hearing about Krishna, one becomes, above these modes. Okay, we'll stop here today. Any questions or comments for what we discussed from this chapter? Nagraj.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna. Something that I have never understood and probably has got very deep reason. It is ultimately Lord Krishna who has created all of us, but it is also the Lord Krishna who has created all the material nature. And it is Lord Krishna who has created the bondage. The only liberty we have is to be either attached to one of those modes and then keep going through the cycle of karma, or be detached. But he is the one who has actually bound us into this material natures. So what is the purpose of creating us and then binding us into these material natures and then keeping us going round and round the circle with the 84 lakh births?
Good question. So Lord Krishna created us not to put us into material nature. We have originated from Krishna for the purpose of participating in his eternal pastimes. That's the purpose. We exist. But when we say, why should you have your pastimes? I want to have my pastimes. Which means when we don't want to cooperate with Krishna's plan, the Supreme Consciousness has his plan. When we don't want to cooperate, then Krishna creates an illusion. Okay, you want to be God, you want to play like God, you want to become independent controller of everything. So I'll give you an experience of like that. And that experience is called material life. So the three modes, they put the living entity into an illusion of thinking oneself as the controller. I am controlling, I am enjoying, I am the master. But what happens is, in due course of time, the living entity gets frustrated because the living entity realizes, I am not controlling, I am getting controlled. And when the living entity gets frustrated, then the living entity says, okay, I'm sorry, Krishna, I'm enough playing God. Now you again become the God, and I would just follow what you want me to do. So then that leads to liberation. So it's not that we are created to be bound. It's not that we are created to be bound. We are created to be free. But when we don't properly utilize that freedom, then we are put into an illusion of being free completely from Krishna. But then that illusion, it shatters into pieces when we realize through our experience that I cannot be the controller. I tried my whole life, so many lifetimes, to be the center of attraction and attention, but it's not working, right? So then that person becomes free from the modes, or is helped to become free from the modes. Because you see, the living entity is minute, but the desire of the living entity is against his capacity. The desire is, I want to become as big enjoyer as the Supreme Krishna. So how will that fulfill? Only by creating an illusion. Yes, you are that great. Just like, have you seen small boys, when they see their father drive the car, they also want to drive the car. But your hand doesn't reach the steering. Your legs don't reach the brake and accelerator. How will you drive the car? So what would the father do? Instead of making the boy drive the real car, bring a toy car. Now you sit on this toy car and you think you are the driver, and then you drive. So material life is like that toy that we have got. Okay, now you become this, you become that. You think you are so great. You're controlling the whole world. You think so, but then as black hairs turn into gray, we begin to slowly realize that this is all toy which I've been playing. I want to get out of this now. That's the purpose.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That makes sense.
Thank you. Sorry, Kamataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. We have discussed that the persons who are in the mode of goodness, they are too satisfied that they don't follow the dictates of super soul. Then how can we say that they are spiritually active?
I did not get. You're saying spiritually active in the sense that they will engage in some pious activities, religious activities, some dharma they will do, but then they will not do with the idea of getting out of it. They will do that with the idea that let us do this so that our life continues to be nice. But then they do engage in religious activities, some kind of dharma, they engage in that. And also goodness is needed, because goodness acts as a platform to come to spiritual life. The problem is not goodness. The problem is getting stuck at the stage of goodness. One has to come to goodness to rise to transcendence. But the problem is that one gets stuck to goodness. And that's what happens with most of the pious Hindus. Now, most of the pious Hindus, they are very happy in life. Why? A nice family, nice house, good bank balance, everything going fine, a good health. And they go to temple also. They do some kind of charity also. They have good name and fame in the society. And they would read spiritual books also occasionally. So they are very much satisfied in life. But the problem is that satisfaction then becomes a reason not to attain mukti. So it becomes an obstacle to transcendence. That's the only problem. Otherwise, goodness is very nice. It's very good. Usha Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we all are neophyte devotees, not still pure devotees. We are trying to attain and become pure devotees. But I'm afraid, Prabhuji, that there's a very hairline difference. People who are in mode of goodness and people who are trying to become pure devotees like us. So though we have learned now that we have to not get attached to happiness, do not have to get attached to knowledge. So what are the precautions? Because we are still on the borderline. As yet.
Yeah. So we'll come to know about that in the remaining section of the chapter, no? Krishna will answer that part also. How to go beyond mode of goodness. Krishna will answer that in the last section of this chapter. So we'll discuss that tomorrow. It's explained in the same chapter. Okay. Srinivas Gopal Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanam Pranam. Prabhuji, you gave an example where Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Prabhuji, you gave example that that we have to read about Krishna, and then so this modes will not affect us like that.
I give an example.
Can you explain me?
Yeah, I was telling. Okay. So it's given in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, that by studying Srimad Bhagavatam or by hearing about Krishna and reading about Krishna from the right source, one goes beyond mode of passion and ignorance. By associating with Krishna, who is pure goodness, we also rise above mode of passion and ignorance.
But contrary to state, we see so many examples that of reading Srimad Bhagavatam or being in a temple. Still, they are under modes.
Very good question. The reason is, first of all, not Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Because normal in these professional Bhagavatam players are there, plus our ISKCON society also Bhagavatam people are there, which we cannot say that they means we don't. I am not the right person to say that, but still we see the gunas
I told you. It says in that chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So when we have to hear and read about Krishna sufficiently, constantly, regularly, daily, and hearing and reading just doesn't just mean mechanically, also absorbing your consciousness into it. If you do that, then mode of passion and ignorance will definitely go down. See, medicine is there, but then how are we taking the medicine? If you don't take the medicine regularly, then how is it going to produce a result? If you don't take it properly, how is it going to produce a result? If you don't take it sufficiently, how is it going to produce a result? How many devotees, let's say even those who are doing Bhakti Sastri here, every day read and hear about Krishna? Not everyone does. Then if the modes are disturbing us, affecting us, why should we be surprised? We have to do it, right? It's a part of the treatment. So if we don't take that treatment seriously, then it will not produce the result also. So if people are not getting freed from mode of passion and ignorance, it just proves that the treatment is bona fide, but they are not following it properly. Because those who are following it properly, they are rising above the modes. They are rising above the modes.
Yes,
So it's all about how we follow it.
Yes, yeah.
The process is very simple. We don't have to do much. We just have to do this to rise above the three modes, which is every day hear about Krishna from the right source in the right mood. Then that process will lift our consciousness up, take us to a different level of thinking. And then passion and ignorance will not be able to pull us down. Right? It happens. It will happen. It must happen. Someone said in the chat, if the modes are acting upon us, how does the free will work? Well, free will is there, but because of the strong influence of the modes, the free will becomes so weak that the jiva is not able to execute it against the nature of the modes. No. Then the jiva agrees to what the modes demand. Like to give you an example, you're in a group of friends, 10 people are there together. You alone wants to do something, and those 9, they want to do something else. Now, if you are the leader of the group, you are the most strong person, you can convince all the 9, no, I want this and you all should do what I want. But if you are the weakling in the group and you are all alone, and whatever those 9 decide, even if you have an independent desire of not doing what they are doing, you will go by what they are asking you to do because you are alone, you are weak. That's what happens. That free will is always there with the living entity. But when the modes become so dominating and strong, and that living entity's free will is weak because of lack of spiritual strength, then the person gives in. Okay, I can't do much about it anyway. Let me give in. Just like take the example of an addict. What happens to an addict? An addict many times makes this resolve. I won't smoke, I won't take drugs, I won't drink. But because the past sanskar is so strong and that resolution is so weak, as soon as there is a temptation, the person gives in. It doesn't mean that the person doesn't have a free will, but that free will becomes so weak that the person gives in. So by associating with Krishna consciousness, one makes one's free will very strong, and then one is able to not give in. It depends on how nicely we are practicing Krishna consciousness. That's all. Anita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. So my question is, one of the homework assignment that the question was asked, practical, how you are influenced by mode of ignorance and mode of passion. So what are you looking, the personal application?
Personal, yes, personal. In your life, how you are influenced by mode of passion and ignorance.
So the definitions we learned, so how that...
Not definitions, how it is happening in your life. In your life, how the modes of ignorance affect you, how the mode of passion affects you. So you have to share from your personal life.
And how you improve on your mode of goodness that
is not asked in the question. The question only says, observe your life and see how these modes are affecting you.
Okay.
The purpose of that question is to make you an observer. Observe your own life, how the mode of passion affects you, how the mode of ignorance affects you. Because until unless we observe, we come to know there is a disease. We will never try to cure that disease. So this is for observance. Observe yourself, how these 2 modes are affecting you. Right? So then you write down that observation. That's all there says.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Divya Vishwanatha.
Regarding as a continuation of that free will, just want to understand what is the free will. Is it as a individually, naturally it is influenced with the modes we are being controlled, or which mode we are, or it automatically it is in the mode of goodness itself? How it is? My understanding, why I understood that the free will is the part where which mode the soul is already there. That is where the free will come on. Well, likewise, if I want to sleep, I'm the mode of the free will is I don't want to wake up. I want to sleep is a free will of mine that I in the mode of ignorance. If the person is automatically wants to wake up, means it is mode of goodness. So
it's not like that. We discussed this before in previous chapters. That's why you have a doubt on this. We discussed this in chapter 3. Free will is a quality of the soul.
Okay.
Quality of the soul. Free will. Will means Ichha Shakti. free will, Ichha Shakti. So the soul has Ichha Shakti, right? So now the soul can place that Ichha Shakti, that willingness, either in following orders of Krishna or disobeying orders of Krishna. Because it is Ichha, right? Ichha means you can choose, choice. So either you choose to follow or you choose to disobey.
Okay.
Now, when one is a liberated soul, then the free will is, I follow Krishna. When one is a conditioned soul, then the free will is, I choose to disobey Krishna. Right? Now, then there are varieties of ways one can choose to disobey. One can choose to disobey in goodness. One can choose to disobey in passion. One can choose to disobey in ignorance.
Correct.
Right? Now, free will is there. Now, by hearing the instructions of the scriptures, then one can change that tendency. Earlier, I was choosing to disobey. Now, I choose to obey. So now, even if the three modes are pulling me, I'll pull in the opposite direction. No, no, no. I have decided now to obey. Right? Right? So free will is just like that, identification. That's all. Choice. And that is always there with the soul. The soul has always that ability to choose. Now, what happens is that when one is in tamoguna, then when one is in tamoguna, in ignorance, then because of this sluggishness of consciousness or dullness of consciousness, one's awareness of one's own ability to choose becomes very, very negligible. Then a person in tamoguna is like, I have no choice only. This is the only choice. Let me drink.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I'm used to taking drugs. I have no choice. This is the only choice. Let me take drugs. Why? Because that dull consciousness, that thick consciousness has kind of made the other option invisible. But then that option is still there. It's just that you are so dull and, colored in consciousness that you are not able to perceive that option. But the quality is always there. It's not accessible, but it is always there. Right? That's why people who are in mode of goodness, they are very determined on spiritual path, because they know that I have the choice. But those who are in ignorance, they are very weak in their spiritual life, because of ignorance, they think, I have no choice. I am like this only. My nature is so strong. This, that. They have so many reasons to not do the right thing. Right? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You have to do 2 essays for this unit. For each unit, you have to do 2 essays. All right. Hanit Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, my question is that, supposing if you work very, very hard, you work very passionately, you do all those things what we spoke about in Rajaguna, but supposing if you're doing that for your spiritual desires, where does it fall? Means you work so hard that, you compromise on your sleep, you compromise on everything, and you're working very hard, but it's all for spiritual desires. So where does that fall?
It falls in passion only. It doesn't become sattva guna or goodness, or definitely it is not transcendence. In chapter 6, we discussed this, that when one is in lower stages of yoga, karma is the means, work is the means. And when one becomes advanced in the stages of yoga, then one should give up karma. Then jnana is the means. Right? So if we are passionate, we should burn that passion in Krishna's service. It may take some time. It may take a couple of years or 5 years or 10 years, but we should burn away that passion. And then we'll come to a stage of consciousness, then we will no longer like to be passionate. But that will happen naturally. It cannot be done artificially. So one has to burn away that passion. Once that passion burns away, then one becomes very, very calm in mind. And because one becomes calm in mind, then one would not like to run here and there and be passionate. Then one would just like to sit in one place. Let me just sit and read. Let me just sit in here. Let me just sit and chant. Let me take care of this body. Let me do things more in a sober manner, calm manner. And then from that mode of goodness, then one will transcend that also and then come to pure goodness. In that pure goodness, again, then one can work for 20 hours, 22 hours, just like Srila Prabhupada used to do, or many great spiritual masters are currently doing. But then they are not in passion. Then they are totally in pure goodness. Then they can act like that superhuman, person who is not affected. And it's not that they are now doing a sacrifice. It's just that now their bodily needs are so minimal. They don't have a need to sleep. They don't have a need to eat. They don't have a need to drink water. They don't have a need to relax their mind. So then they can just go around very fast, very quick to do many things for Krishna. So it's a gradual thing. We will go up from where we are. We just have to follow the process, and slowly we go up.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I try to remain in mode of goodness, but my external factors push me to the wall to such an extent. Goodness doesn't just mean that you are a peaceful person who are in goodness. Goodness means that you are very alert to do what you are supposed to do. That's called goodness, right? And that goodness comes by following the injunctions of the scriptures. So now how do we overcome being pulled down by passion and ignorance? That we can only do by every day having a good sadhana, Krishna conscious sadhana. Then our chances of slipping down will be less. And even if we slip down, we need not worry. If our sadhana is good, we'll rise again very quickly. There might be a fall sometimes, but if the sadhana is nice, then the rise is also very quick. So you fall and then suddenly you rise. If sadhana is weak, you fall and then you fall. Finish. Then you're on the ground. Someone has to come and lift you up. But when your sadhana is nice, you fall and suddenly you rise. You're back again. All right. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada.